Hey friends, welcome to 1littlecoder podcast. This is your host Abdul Majid. In this podcast, I talk to open source developers, community organizers, and content creators to understand how they do what they do so that we all can get inspired. In this episode, we are talking to Liyas Thomas, developer of one of the popular open source libraries called Postwoman. And welcome Liyas for the show. Could you please introduce yourself? Let us know what you do as part of your full-time job on your open source project.
Yeah, sure, Majid. Thanks for the call. My name is Liyas Thomas. I'm a full stack developer at buymeacoffee.com. I also author and maintain a couple of open source projects such as Postwoman, Minimal, and Colorbook. I'm 21 years old and I'm from India.
Okay. If I go through your portfolio, you've got actually a lot of open source projects that someone for your age, it is, I'm mesmerized to see that many open source projects. Could you please let us know about your programming journey? How did you get started with?
Yeah, sure. I started programming when I was 7 years old. So I really started from making small projects that would ease up my workflow. And it's been around 6 years since I started contributing to open source projects. Pretty much a long time, and I do have a lot of projects.
And how did you even get to know that there is something called open source exists? Because a lot of people in India, if you actually see, they don't know anything about open source. And how did you get to know about it?
Well, that's a correct question. Because for me, I started programming just because in my school there were a function that allowed students to work on a project that would ultimately or eventually become their school website. So all of us were struggling to find templates and all such resources that would help us. And that's exactly when I found out what open source projects were. People would contribute to a project and make it better.
Great. And did you have any personal mentor, or how was it? How did you go about learning it?
Well, at initial stages, I do not have any mentor, but I got support from my teachers as well as my parents. And mainly I did internet, Google, and all such resources that I could find online. So that's pretty much how I learned all about programming and web development. I'm pretty much a self-learned web developer.
Oh, that is great to know. And when did you actually started understanding that you have to build a portfolio, like how you have currently? Was it from the start you were focusing on the portfolio, or initially it was just, normal random programming?
At first, it was random programming, small tutorials and silly games, web games and all. But later then, I realized that there is a scope for building up a portfolio that would eventually help in your career goals. So when I was around at 10th standard, I really get into this building up a portfolio that would help me in the long run. So yeah, it was half about doing crazy things and half serious stuff.
Okay, that is good to know. When you are in your university college, how do you think that has impacted in your this open source or coding career? Do you think it added value to it, or do you think this 4 years of I don't know? I assume that you did 4 years, so the college education was not a great addition. So what do you think about this thing?
Okay, well, I graduated Bachelor in Computer Science Engineering 6 months back, and at my college, we along with some of my friends developed our college faculty feedback system, and it too was open source. So that was one of the best projects that I have worked on. It always had been such a great mentorship from my college faculties and, all those networks that we built up on those college time. It was great. It at most added a lot of value to my career as well as my open source journey.
Oh, nice. And starting with your open source career, what was the first project that took off for you? So I know about Postman, but I think you have a lot of open source projects. So what was the first one that took off?
Well, I don't really quite remember the first one, but if I recall correctly, it would be my website,
Okay.
I did a website for myself. It was kind of like a portfolio, but at first I didn't have any projects, but my website was my first project in open source.
Nice. And you had all the technologies or programming languages that was required to build such a website, or you wanted to build a website and then you started learning those languages? How did this process go?
I learned it by growing, I wanted to build a website, so I started with basic HTML,
Mhm.
and gradually I learned all such frameworks and languages that would help me to build a better site. So
Oh,
that was the journey.
nice. And what is your like favorite stack that you like to use? Languages or
Well, now, as of now, I'm a full stack developer, but I do focus on front end development. So my favorite stack would be main stack. So that would be MongoDB, React, and also I'm into Vue right now. That's my favorite stack right now.
nice. Coming to Postwoman, the name itself says that it is an alternative, open source alternative for Postman, and you know that Postman is actually a very big company. So, how did you
Yeah.
even thought that you can make a project that is like an alternate for such a big company?
Yeah, sure. Actually, after my graduation, I joined in a startup company near my locality. So that's actually when I first discovered about API testing tools. But honestly, I had a laptop which was around 8 years old, and the Postman app building from crashed my system. So I couldn't run any API testing tools, and that's why I discovered this is for online alternative API testing tool. So I built Postwoman MVP in a day, and I hosted it on GitHub. So that's the exact motivation I had to work on Postwoman.
Wow, nice. That's so impressive that that project took only one day for you. Um, so you would say that starting from ideation, like maybe you faced the problem with Postman today and then tomorrow you built it, or you actually took some time to think about should I build, what should I build, or do I have alternatives?
Well, actually not. The first was correct. First of all, I came upon Postman. I took what are the features they offered, and at the night itself, after crashing my PC, I started working on a web app, starting with basic utilities and the repositories and all. So at that night itself, I had an MVP, which is which I can use at my company. So
A lot of people actually start open source project, and most of these
mhm.
projects are not visible or not seen by anyone at all. So it resides on their GitHub and no one uses it. It never takes off. But for you, Postwoman was like probably you started with 0 star on GitHub, but now you have around
Yeah,
19,000 stars.
actually, it's a truth that there is no way an open source project would get an initial applause. I intentionally promoted my project in social sites such as Reddit and Twitter. So that was a initial boost for my project. But later then I realized that developer or a developer community, they support a project that make use for them. So eventually that was my answer, that there was a space for an online tool and Postwoman could do that. So that must be the reason why the development community took it, and everybody loved it. So that's it.
Okay. I remember, I think I saw a Dev2 article that you had written about Postman. And
Hmm.
so again, coming back to open source projects, a lot of times open source projects get criticism also. A lot of people do not like the way you have designed an API or some functionality. Did you get any hate initially, or like everyone was like, this is awesome, this is beautiful?
Yeah, first of all, when at the early times, I did get lots of hate speech and comparison with Postman, some similarities in the name and functionalities. But yeah, even though there will be some initial uh, difficulties bringing up your project, I think eventually they will realize the value of your project and cope up with you. I did have some difficulties maintaining the project at the initial time, but now I think most of them have discovered the potential in the project and they are coping with as well.
Okay. And how did you handle it when you got a negative feedback, or someone on Twitter or Reddit saying that what is this? This is like a Postman duplicate or something like that.
Yeah, first of all, I asked with my peers, we had developers from around the world. So I talked with them. We discussed if there are any legal issues around naming such a similar name for the open source alternative. And yeah, actually my friends gave me the confidence that we should proceed with this name and there won't be any other legal or any other problems ahead of us. So my friends gave me the confidence to work on this.
So Postman is a for-profit company. They are here to make money, right? So why did you make Postwoman open source? Why not make it a company and then make money?
Well, first of all, I did not have any plans to stick a business model with the Postman alternative, which is Postwoman. But later then I realized there is a potential for, making a SaaS out of it, a service-based application out of it. And we do have a couple of features which are currently in working progress and which may comes with a paid or a pro level subscription plan. So the plans for a paid plans is not at all given up, but we do have discussions going around it. So we are waiting for a new direction that we could come up with a Postman app.
You said we were in discussion. So when you say we, is it just you or you have like a group of core contributors who is also part of this Postwoman?
Well, yeah, actually it's a group of people, that is developers, my friends, and along with some angel investors who are ready to invest in Postwoman to take it to the next level. We had some angel investors approaching us, discussing about some business plans that would stick to the core Postwoman application.
Okay. Oh, that is nice to know. So I always like open source projects that can also make money because they can sustain for a longer period than shutting it down. When you said you had initially, publicized Postwoman through Reddit and other social platforms, do you have any learnings from that to someone who is trying to popularize their open source project? Can you share some tips for it?
Yeah, sure. When you start on a project, the main thing that you have to is consistency. Don't give up if you don't get the initial traction. For an organic growth, it takes time. It may be 1 week or 1 month or maybe 6 months, but work on the product, and if you are that much confident in it, and give it some time, eventually it will stand up. You will get where you want to be.
Okay, so it's being consistent and not giving up.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And why is this name Postwoman? So do you have any backstory behind it?
Well, as I said, it came from a single night. It was a 3-hour project. So I was actually looking up for a better name, but it just came to my mind. I should name this Postwoman. I just named it that way. That's it.
Okay.
Just totally super random.
Okay, nice. I think taking a slight deviation from open source, I think your full-time job is from this company, Buy Me a Coffee. It's YC funded company, I think. So, how is your experience in working for an YC funded company? And then, do you have some learnings from that that you try to apply when it's coming to popularizing Postwoman or commercializing it?
Yeah, working in a startup, even though it's funded by YC, I think that you can learn by working in a startup. There will be a lot of stuff that you have to involve, whether it's programming or marketing or growth strategies. You could learn a bit from every field. Every field a company would put hands into. So that's one thing that I personally learned by myself. And yeah, in Buy Me Coffee, I personally felt there is a space for everyone. Everyone can have flexible hours. They can switch projects. And our founders, they help us to, build your own career, grow as the company, move forward. And we do have a vision that we all follow by our heart. So that's pretty much the takeaway from my company, Buy Me a Coffee.
That is good. Let's say there is a programmer who wants to get started today, like a college student or a high school student somewhere in a village in India, and all they have is only internet. So what is your advice how they can, become someone like you?
Yeah, my first advice my tip would be, build a portfolio, but don't get copy from your peers or online tutorials or something like that. Use that and mix up that and to create something that is unique for yourself. And one more thing is, you should start making an audience around your space. Find a space, find a niche in your industry, whether it's web development or debugging, testing, whatever the field is. find a particular space where you are confident to perform well and build an audience around it. You can use social networks or simply a newsletter, whatever you can, or writing a blog, whatever you can, build an audience and also connections that would definitely help in the long run. That's one advice that I would like to you to be new members.
Okay. And when it comes to programming language learning, so what is your suggestion, sir? Do you expect someone to go to a course, like a physical boot camp and then learn it, or online course, or just leave out everything and then start with projects and directly start learning language?
Well, it totally depends upon the guy who's trained. For some, a tutorial or a video, even a YouTube video can do wonders. But my suggestion is, even though you are watching a YouTube tutorial or a demo or a tutorial, something like that, you have to build a project which uses the particular stack parallelly along learning. And ultimately, or eventually, you will learn how to handle errors which may not be covered in the tutorial and which you can expect in the real life situations. So build a project which uses the stack apart from the tutorials which you are covering. And also read the docs, Most of the projects have good documentation nowadays. So reading the docs would help you a lot. That's it.
Okay. That's a nice update. So I think that is a good segue to now talk about your upcoming book. Would you like to tell us about what is it? And
started writing the book around 1 month ago. The motive behind the book is, even though being a developer, I find the one stream that I lack is business, or should I say marketing strategies. So I found if you want to learn something, you better learn by teaching someone. So my book is 100% experimental. That is targeted to beginners as well as developers who are currently working on a side project. My book talk about making a side project into a profitable business. While writing this book, I read a lot of books that talk about these similar topics. So I will be sharing my experiences for the past 6 years along with stuff that I have learned from reading other books.
okay. And so for the audience, the book's name is Decoding the Passion Project. And there are $2 in it, $2 signs. So why are you self-publishing? Why is it on Gumroad? Why not a publisher? Publisher can probably get you more marketing and all those things. So what is the thought process behind putting it on Gumroad directly?
Well, selling a digital downloadable edition of the book is pretty much the easiest way you can get the book into the audience. If there is a long, lengthy process behind it, it would be much difficult for a average Joe to get hold on to that book. And if you're putting into Gumroad, especially in Gumroad, you can just buy the book and read it. It's much more simpler going with a digital edition rather than going with a publisher kind of thing.
Okay. And now that you are in the process of writing book, or I'm sorry, so have you finished it or you're in the process?
I haven't finished it. It's currently in the process of writing.
Okay. So are there any tips that you would like to share it with someone who wants to start writing book about their area of technology or something that they know?
Start early, Always keep a journal or a side note. Wrote down few tips or anything that you learned from others, that would eventually help you to write a book. I had this habit of taking notes whenever I get to learn something new. So it definitely helped me while writing this book. That's one thing that I'd like to share.
That's a great tip. And when is your book coming out?
The release date is July 12th, but there may be, different situations going around US and all. I might postpone to one extra month, at most 2 months. That's it.
And who are you trying to target as target audience? I think you already mentioned that those who have an open source project and want to turn it to a profitable project. So is there any other target audience that you have in mind for this particular book?
My main focus would be developers who do have a current project which they have confidence in making to a sustainable business. But I will be also sharing some tips that would help even the new developers, new coming people to how to make projects that would eventually can be scaled into a sustainable business. So new beginners as well, for those who have little or medium level kind of experience in working with projects.
If you see a country like India, especially in a lot of developing places, so you would see college students highly distracted. They would waste their time on social media. I'm not saying everyone is like that, but we come across a lot of students like that. So how is it that you manage to, be very focused on one project after another project now, and on Postwoman is now taking off like very well. So you have other plans like writing a book. So how is it that you manage to keep focused, highly productive, and do you have any tips around that?
Yeah, actually, I do have a story behind it. Well, after plus two, higher secondary education, I had this 1 year break from education because I had some financial issues in my family. So I made sure that I used that 1 year building myself, learning new stuff, and developing my career. So that 1 year changed my whole life just because I couldn't go to college. It actually it's very personal reason, but being productive in this kind of situations, especially in a country like India, it's pretty much tough. But you just have to believe in yourself and take ownership in what you do. So that's it. That's how I did.
Now your project is recognized throughout the world. So I think that 1 year gap thing that you would not regret at all.
Yeah.
So the way that you have, built up open source and now a book, it resembles like a lot of India hacker journey. If you actually see, lot of people have done this kind of thing, but you wouldn't see many people like this from India. So do you actually have any inspiration, or do you follow someone who you have seen and then you're trying to mirror it and learn from them? Do you have anyone like that, or it is all just out of your thoughts?
Well, I would say there is a 50% chance that lot of my situation, my environment, my parents, my friends, colleagues motivated me to or either contribute to what I have today. But the other 50 is solemnly from me, taking the effort to build stuff or learning something instead of sleeping. So I have spent a lot of nights learning, writing, doing research and all. So it's a 50 chance that you put your part, and the other 50 comes from your environment, whether it's your colleague or classmates or teachers, motivators, whatever.
That takes us to the end of the podcast. So do you have any general message or comments or tips to our audience who's like basically programmers who are passionate about open source projects?
Well, being a developer, it's kind of tough to maintain a work-life balance. So I just want everybody to find a peace, find your own space and grow eventually. Boost will be better, but if you grow eventually, it will last longer. So that's something that I have learned through my experience. Do maintain a life-work balance. Live happily, that's it.
Nice. That's great advice. Thank you so much, Liyas, for doing this episode for us. So audience can find you on Twitter, LIYASTHOMAS. And I think you also have presence on LinkedIn, and I hope your book is a success. Take you to new places.
Thank you, Ajit. Pleasure was all mine. It was great talking to you.